Part 1. The Rise of Ancient Egypt and the Old Kingdom. Welcome to Ancient Egypt, a Civilization Unveiled. In this two-part series, we'll embark on an extensive journey through one of history's most captivating civilizations. We traverse the sands of time to uncover the secrets of ancient Egypt. Our story begins over 5,000 years ago, along the fertile banks of the Nile River. But before we dive into the rise of this great civilization, let's set the stage by understanding the unique geography that made it all possible. Egypt, often called the Gift of the Nile by the ancient Greek historian Herodotus, owes its existence to this mighty river. The Nile, flowing northward for over 4,000 miles, created a narrow strip of fertile land in the midst of harsh desert. This river valley, coupled with the Nile Delta, formed the core of ancient Egyptian civilization. The predictable annual flooding of the Nile deposited rich silt across the floodplain, creating ideal conditions for agriculture. This reliable food source allowed for population growth and the development of a complex society. Now let's turn our attention to the birth of ancient Egypt as a unified state. Around 3100 BCE, a king named Narmer, also known as Menes in some accounts, united Upper and Lower Egypt. This momentous event marked the beginning of the early dynastic period and the birth of the world's first nation-state. Narmer's unification is immortalized on the famous Narmer palette, a ceremonial slate object discovered in Hierakonpolis. It depicts him smiting his enemies and celebrating his conquest. With this act of unification, Narmer laid the foundation for a civilization that would endure for 3 millennia. The early dynastic period saw the development of many hallmarks of ancient Egyptian civilization. Hieroglyphic writing evolved, allowing for record-keeping and the preservation of religious texts. The first pyramids, known as step pyramids, were built during this time, most famously the Step Pyramid of Djoser at Saqqara, the first monumental stone building designed by the architect Imhotep around 2630 BCE. The Step Pyramid wasn't just a tomb, it was a stairway to the heavens, allowing the pharaoh to ascend to the realm of the gods. Imhotep's genius was so revered that he was later deified, becoming the patron god of scribes and physicians. As we move into the Old Kingdom period, spanning from about 2686 to 2181 BCE, we witness the apex of royal power and the construction of Egypt's most iconic monuments, the Great Pyramids of Giza. The Old Kingdom, often called the Age of the Pyramids, began with the Third Dynasty and ended with the Sixth. During this time, Egypt was at its most prosperous and politically stable, allowing for massive building projects that still awe us today. It's at this point that we meet one of Egypt's most famous pharaoh, Khufu. Known to the Greeks as Cheops, Khufu is the man behind the Great Pyramid of Giza. The precision of the Great Pyramid's construction is truly mind-boggling. Its base is level to within just 2.1 centimeters, less than an inch, and its sides are aligned to the cardinal directions with an accuracy of up to 0.06 degrees. This level of precision would be challenging even with modern technology, and at 481 feet tall, it would remain the tallest man-made structure in the world for over 3,800 years. But Khufu's reign wasn't just about grand monuments. He also sent mining expeditions to the turquoise mines of Sinai and trading missions to Lebanon for precious cedar wood. Khufu's son, Khafra, would continue his father's legacy, building the second-largest pyramid at Giza. But Khafra is perhaps best known for another iconic monument, the Great Sphinx. But how did they build it? This question has puzzled scholars and enthusiasts for centuries. While we can't be certain of all the details, archaeological evidence suggests a combination of ingenious techniques. But the pyramids weren't just feats of engineering, they served a crucial religious purpose. Egyptians believed that the proper preservation of the pharaoh's body and possessions was essential for his successful journey to the afterlife, where he would rule for eternity. This brings us to one of the most fascinating aspects of ancient Egyptian culture, their complex beliefs about death and the afterlife. The Egyptians believed in a multifaceted soul, consisting of several parts: the Ka, life force; the Bia, personality; the Ak, transformed self; the Name, and the shadow. The figure who revolutionized the Egyptian concept of the afterlife was Osiris. While not a historical person, Osiris was a god-king whose myth profoundly shaped Egyptian religion. The story goes that Osiris was murdered by his jealous brother Set, only to be resurrected by his wife Isis. This tale of death and rebirth became the foundation of Egyptian beliefs about the afterlife. Osiris became the lord of the underworld, and every Egyptian hoped to become an Osiris after death. This belief in the afterlife led to elaborate burial practices. To ensure the survival of these aspects of the soul, Egyptians developed elaborate burial practices, including mummification. This process, which could take up to 70 days, involved removing the internal organs, except the heart, drying the body with natron salt, and wrapping it in linen bandages. The removed organs were preserved in canopic jars, each protected by a specific god. The practice of mummification wasn't limited to humans. Sacred animals, such as cats, ibises, and crocodiles, were also mummified. In fact, millions of mummified animals have been discovered in Egyptian tombs, offering insights into the religious practices and beliefs of ancient Egyptians. As we delve deeper into Old Kingdom society, we find a highly organized state with a complex bureaucracy. The vizier, often a close relative of the pharaoh, acted as the head of government, overseeing various departments and the judicial system, while the overseer of all royal works was responsible for managing the massive construction projects of the era. The Old Kingdom also saw advancements in medicine. The Edwin Smith Papyrus, believed to date from this period, is one of the oldest known surgical treatises. It describes 48 cases of injuries, fractures, wounds, dislocations, and tumors, along with their diagnosis and treatment. This document reveals a surprisingly advanced understanding of anatomy and medical procedures for its time. In terms of daily life, most ancient Egyptians were farmers, living in simple mud brick homes along the Nile. The main crops were wheat and barley, used to make the staple foods of bread and beer. Yes, you heard that right. Beer was a daily drink for ancient Egyptians, consumed by adults and children alike. While the pharaoh and nobles lived in luxury, with access to a variety of foods, fine linen clothing, and elaborate jewelry, the average Egyptian's diet was more modest, consisting mainly of bread, beer, and vegetables, with occasional fish or meat. Education in the Old Kingdom was not universal. Most children learned their parents' trades, but boys from wealthy families could attend formal schools to become scribes. The ability to read and write hieroglyphs was a highly prized skill, opening doors to important government positions. As the Old Kingdom progressed, Egypt's influence expanded beyond its borders. Trade networks were established with Nubia to the south, bringing gold and exotic goods like incense and ebony. To the north and east, cedar wood was imported from Lebanon, and lapis lazuli made its way from as far as Afghanistan. As we near the end of the Old Kingdom, we meet a remarkable woman, Queen Ankhesenpepi II. She was the mother of Pepi II, who became pharaoh at the tender age of 6. She likely served as regent, wielding considerable power. Ascending to the throne as a child around 2278 BCE, Pepi II would go on to have one of the longest reigns in recorded history, possibly up to 94 years. As Pepi II's reign drew to a close around 2184 BCE, so too did the Old Kingdom era. The death of this long-lived pharaoh marked the end of a golden age in Egyptian history, a time of incredible achievements in art, architecture, and governance. As we conclude this first part of our journey, we leave ancient Egypt on the brink of change. The centralized power of the Old Kingdom is waning, setting the stage for a period of upheaval known as the First Intermediate Period. But from this chaos will rise the splendors of the Middle and New Kingdoms, which we'll explore in our next episode. Until then, let the wonders of ancient Egypt continue to captivate your imagination. Thanks for watching.